Hi, I'm Mrs. D Math. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to be going over comparing functions in 8th grade math. If you've missed any other function videos, you can find those linked below. Let's get started. Sometimes we have two different forms of functions, and in that case we can find the equations that go with each scenario and plug in a number for x to compare them. So in this case, we're first given an equation. So when ordering books online, the cost for X books is Y equals $2.50 times X plus $2. Then we have a table. The table shows the cost of the books at the bookstore. We want to know which option is more expensive when you buy 6 books. So we need to figure out, first of all, what the equation is that goes with our table. So we have the equation in our problem here, Y equals 250 times x plus 2. And in the table here, we have 1 equals $3, 2 books is $6, 3 books is $9, and it's pretty quick here to see that every time we are multiplying by 3. Because it is consistently multiplying by 3, we can determine that my formula or equation is y equals 3x. If I bought 0 books, I would pay $0. So I do know that this table, my equation here, is proportional because it will go through 0, 0. Now this other equation will not because I do have a plus $2, which is my b. All right, so now we want to figure out which option is going to cost more money when we buy 6 books. So we have to take each equation and plug in the number 6 for our x. And the reason I'm plugging in 6 for the x is because x represents the number of books. And you can see that labeled here on our table. And it also tells us in the sentence the cost for x books. So that means that x is for the books. And I did go ahead and just put 2 here instead of $2 because I don't need the zeros. So now I know that y equals 250 times 6, which equals $15. And then if I add $2 to that, that means that the cost of 6 books is going to be $17 when I am ordering online. So now let's go ahead and plug in our 6 books with our other equation from the table. So in this case, I have y equals 3 times 6. And I know that 3 times 6 is $18. And this is when I go to the bookstore. So it looks like the most expensive option for 6 books is buying them at the bookstore. It's going to cost $1 more to buy 6 books at the bookstore. So you can see here we did have 2 different forms of functions. First was an equation. The one on the right was a table, and we were able to figure out our equation from the table so that we could plug in a 6, which was the number we wanted to find, and figure out which one answered the question. We can also compare functions in the form of graphs and tables. So here I have a table on the left and a graph on the right. My table is the movie rentals online, and my graph is the movie rentals at the kiosk. X represents the number of movie rentals. Here on the graph it's labeled, and the X in our table is the movies that we rented. So 2 movies at the online price cost $5.50. 4 movies cost $9.50. Now over here on our graph, it shows that 1 movie costs $2.50, 2 movies cost $5, 4 movies cost $10. So I could easily fill in the missing information here, but I can also figure out what my formula is or my equation. And so if I look here, y equals 1 movie was $2.50, 2 movies was $5, 4 movies was $10. And if I divide 10 by 4, I get $2.50. So that means each movie costs $2.50. So that's times X, our number of movies. The table is going to be a little bit harder to figure out because there's not a consistent multiplying here. So that means that this one is going to have a y-intercept or a b. I'm going to figure out first what my change is here between my x's and my y's. And if you notice, they're counting by 2. So if I were to find my 3 right here in between, that would be halfway between 550 and 950. Well, the difference between $5.50 and $9.50 is $4, so it would be $2 between one number. So if I subtracted $2 again, one book would cost $3.50. So that means that if I went ahead and went to 0 and I subtracted $2 again, 0 books would cost $1.50. And if you remember, this was one way we could figure out our y-intercept. Whenever we've got to 0, whatever number went with 0 was our y-intercept. So I'll go ahead and start my equation here. Y equals, and I know my plus b is $1.50. If I were to subtract my $1.50 from $5.50, I would get $4, and I know 2 goes into $4 2 times. So I'm going to say 2x plus 150. So let's see if it works for the other ones. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 150 is 950. 6 times 2 is 12. 12 plus 150 is 1350. So it looks like this is a good equation. So now the question wants to know which option is cheaper when we're renting 5 movies. So that means for each one, I'm going to plug in a 5 for my x. So I have y equals 2 times 5 plus 150. So now y equals 2 times 5 is 10 plus $1.50. Y would equal $11.50 for the online option. And then if I look at my graph, I have a couple of ways I can work on the graph. I can go ahead and plug in 5 for x, and I know that 2.5 times 5 is $12.50. The other thing I could do is I could plot the points in between on my graph here, and I know that if it's $2.50 for each one, that this next one would be at $7.50. 4 movies is at $10, so that means that 5 movies would be right here, and if I went across, I would be right between 10 and 15, which is at $12.50. So this is your kiosk option, so that means the cheaper option is going to be y equals $11.50, so the $11.50 for the online price is cheaper. So again, whenever we're comparing 2 different things, we just need to figure out our equation that goes with each option, and then we can plug in the number that we want to find for that equation in order to compare them. And this is a great way for you to see how all of the videos that we've done over slope and y-intercept, if you've missed any of those, they're all going to be linked below. But this is kind of bringing all of that into the reason that we learn it, so we can use it to compare different scenarios that fit the same situation. So in this case, we're renting movies. One option is online, one option is at the kiosk. Thanks for joining me today for comparing functions in 8th grade math. If you've missed any of the videos that go with functions or slope and y-intercept, you can find those linked below. I'm Mrs.D Math. Have a great day. Bye.